Welcome to my NRL ratings and tips video for round 10. Let's have a quick look at how it did last week, and I think everyone had a bit of a shocker last week. It didn't do too good. It got two right. Obviously, there was a draw, but it got five wrong. Looking at the games it got wrong, how many of these teams were actually up? Knights were up by 20-0 and lost. The Broncos were up like 14 odd points and lost. The Raiders were up 20-0 and lost. Yeah, just crazy. If we watch the Eels game, the Eels didn't really start playing until the last 10 minutes. Um, they could have put on a lot more tries than what they did, and they probably should have got to try in those final few minutes to win it, but again, lost. Uh, didn't do too good on the handicaps. We got three out of the eight. And if we look at how the in-play ratings went, so the exact same ratings, but they're calculated as the game goes on. It probably had one of its worst weeks in a while. So three of the games it actually missed, and one of those games was massive, which was Broncos versus Rabbits. It had the Broncos rated at 119. The Rabbits only pulled in a rating of 49, but somehow were able to beat the Broncos, which is just crazy having that much of a ratings differential and still losing the game for the Rabbits. So, very interesting in how it went. Storm pulled out a really good rating at 151, but then they did win by 60 something points. The Sharks did a really good job against Manly. Manly didn't look very good in that game at all. So interesting, uh, interesting ratings there in how they performed during the game. Okay, so let's have a bit of a look at this week. Now, remembering that we had a couple of bets last week, so let's check out those bets. That was pretty much the Knights versus the Titans, which we lost. Knights were up 20 points. So you could have traded that out actually at that point, probably for a pretty good profit. But the Titans did win that game in the end. Knights just couldn't hold the ball in the second half. The other one was the Cowboys versus Panthers. Now, in this case, I ended up profiting slightly. That was because it was a dead heat. It was 30 all. No one scored a point in extra time. Cowboys were the only team that really had opportunities to win the game. They just couldn't kick the field goal. So, based on the dead heat rules, generally, if you have odds above $2, you will come out in front, and if it was below $2, we would have ended up with a negative. So, still not too bad. We get a slight profit there of 175, but in the end, down for the week. Overall, from the tips that have gone up, it's still up $575. So not bad given that the run we had early on in the season. So it's picked some interesting games. Well, one game this round, which is Cowboys versus Seagulls. I haven't checked the odds, but again, we are going to be on the Cowboys this week. Now, they did have a pretty hard game there against Panthers, but they're back at home again. The Seagulls did lose to the Sharks quite convincingly, which did pull down the Seagulls' ratings significantly because these ratings aren't based on the full season. They're based looking back at a certain number of games, and Seagulls are currently out of form when it comes to these ratings, whereas Cowboys are definitely in form. They still pulled a 90 this week. I think if we look back, the week before they pulled a 76, and the week before that, which is really pulling their ratings up, they scored 178 against the Titans. That's really pushing their ratings up. Whereas the Sea Eagles, if we have a look, only pulled a rating of 47 this week. Last week, they must have had the bye. Let's go back another week. Seagulls here, they pulled a 91, and if we go back again, they pulled a 38. So they've pulled two really low ratings in their last three. Going back one more, they pulled a 53. So 3 out of their last 4 ratings have been shocking. So not surprising there that the Cowboys are a clear tip for it. So we'll see how we go. That is the bet. I will have to check the odds. Given the line's about minus 1.5, Cowboys are going to be the favourites slightly. That's probably a $1.80, $1.85 favourite. I'll be looking to get around that at $1.85 at least, if not more. But I will have to double check those and put the odds in after the video. Okay, so let's have a look at what it's tipped this week. We have the Eels to beat the Knights only slightly. There's a 4-point differential there in the ratings, which turns into a 2-point edge for the Eels, which means we'll go for the Eels on the handicap. Bulldogs versus Roosters. The Roosters are coming off a bye, so they've been able to rest up. The Bulldogs had a tough game against Canberra in Canberra, so they're back at home, but the Roosters should be well rested here. I've got them as a 16-point winner here, a significant difference in the ratings. It's not a tip because the Roosters are away, but we will take the Roosters at minus 7.5. The Dolphins versus the Warriors. The Warriors are outperforming where I expect them to be this season. They're doing really well on the ladder compared to where their ratings say they should be, but they're winning those close games. Like they beat the Dragons by a point last week. So given that they're winning those close games, they've got the edge here against the Dolphins. It's got a 10-point differential in the ratings, which is roughly 4 points. So we'll take the Warriors on the line as well at -0.5. I don't see how the Dolphins really can win that, but we'll have to wait and see, given the ratings have not had a good week last week. Cowboys versus Seagulls. It's tipped the Cowboys to absolutely smash the Seagulls by 18 points, so I'll take the Cowboys at the minus 1.5. The Sharks versus the Storm. It's got the Storm. Not surprising. Storm are playing quite well this season. Given they've got one of the top ratings this round with 110. Only a couple of teams higher than them, which are the Roosters and Cowboys. So that turns into a 15-point differential. Given that they're a 4.5, giving away a 4.5 start on the line, we will tip the Storm here to cover that. Broncos versus Dragons. Surely Broncos can't lose here, but the ratings have tipped the Dragons, which is quite interesting. So the Dragons have got a rating of 101, the Broncos 89. The Dragons have been pulling out good ratings all season, just not getting the wins, just not converting their breaks into points and not defending well enough. But it has tipped the Dragons with a 5-point win, so we'll take the Dragons with their lead of 10.5 on the line. Hopefully they can get a win there. The Raiders versus Titans. If we look at that, it's got the Raiders at home to win by 11 points. So close to a tip. I cannot see the Raiders losing that game. I would probably I'd get pretty close to that being a tip. But it is 11 and it does need to be 12 points. So we'll take the Raiders to cover the line there at minus 7.5. The Tigers versus the Rabbits. The Rabbits are tipped to win this against the Tigers, only just by 2 points. And the Tigers are favourites, so we'll take the Rabbits with the 0.5 point start. And that is it for the ratings. So just the one tip to bet on this week, which is the Cowboys versus Sea Eagles. given the 18 points that the ratings have predicted the Cowboys to win at. If we're lucky, the Cowboys will actually deliver this week, unlike last week. And hopefully we get some good odds, given that the Seagulls are still fancied by the market. So it should be very interesting. Okay. Do you agree with these tips? Do you not? The ratings haven't been going as great as I would like them. They are doing quite well in play. Hopefully, we can get a few good tips in this round. Tip a perfect round. Always interesting with the NRL. There's a lot of upsets. It's a game where there's not many scoring opportunities, and being able to convert your points is very important, which has let quite a few of the teams down when we have tipped them. So they've got the rating on the game that they played in and should have won on that rating, but they've been unable to convert. Okay, let's see how it goes. If you're not subscribed, do subscribe. I put out tips for AFL, NRL, and horse racing. The AFL tips are going really, really well. They are much better than the NRL selections. So definitely check out that video. There's a lot more tips that happen in the AFL. And because there's a lot more scoring opportunities, the wins are much more consistent than the NRL. So much easier to find value tips and get some profit in the AFL than it is to get in the NRL. But we are still up in the NRL. Let's just see how we go this weekend. Okay, thanks everyone. Like and subscribe, and feel free to add any questions in the comments. Thanks for watching.